Welcome to another edition of our tag management tips. Today we're going to walk through testing tags and pixels, just what the process looks like, what goes into it, what you need to prepare as you're going through that process, and just some tips and tricks along the way. So first thing when it comes to testing is we need to know what exactly we're testing. We've talked about it at length when we've discussed our tag audit process, but we need to define what is the problem. Is it something where in our e-commerce tracking, in our web analytics tool, we're missing a bunch of orders? Does revenue just look off? Or are we thinking that the conversion numbers we're seeing within one of our media tracking platforms is way, way lower or way, way higher than what it should be or what it seems it should be? So we need to know what is the discrepancy. What is it that we're wanting to check out? On top of that, we need to know what is the standard, what should be happening. And we should have defined that in our tag policy and in our tag architecture. So things such as the location of the tag. If we think that numbers, traffic numbers in a particular area of the site are a little bit low, well, what tags should be there? As well as what events should be being tracked right now. A lot of times we might have a client that will say, hey, I don't know how many people are signing up for this particular forum. Well, it's because that forum has never been tracked. It's never been a requirement on the website, or it's something that's brand new and the tracking hasn't been updated and hasn't been pushed out there yet. So we need to know those events, those interactions that should be being tracked, and then we need to know the data. So what are the data points that we're expecting to be collected in those different areas? Once we know these requirements, we now know what we're testing against. We know what areas of the site that we're going to be looking at, and we know exactly what we're looking for as we get into the process. Step 2 in this testing and validation process is the actual testing, so doing the work. So we take our documentation and our requirements, and now we start walking through, okay, what does everything look like right now? What goes into that exactly? First, we're going to want to look at the data layer, which hopefully we're using. We're going to need to see within the tag what exactly is it referencing. If I'm on a product display page and I am going to be trying to collect the product price, as an example, where exactly should that product price be being pulled from? If it's from the data layer, I need to make sure that one product price is available to me in the data layer. It is populating correctly there. Because, hey, maybe that value is wrong there. So it's not a tag issue at all, but more so a back-end issue where we're connecting that to the data layer. If it is something that's within the tag configuration, there I can see, am I just referencing the wrong variable or the wrong attribute within the data layer? Or potentially, if I'm trying to scrape that information from the page, did something change with the front end, with the page, so that value is no longer there, or that value changed? Next thing I want to look at, going along that same theme, is the tag itself. If I know the value and the data is there on the page, is my configuration of the tag still properly referencing where I need to pull that from? And even taking a step back from that, is the tag executing there? Number one, is it firing? Is a request being sent? And then digging into if that request is being sent, what value is being collected or what values are missing. Final thing that a lot of times we'll come across is timing. So sometimes you're just stumped. Data layer looks good, tag is executing. I don't know why this isn't working as it should be. It could be a timing issue. Either one, that tag is executing too late in the page, so users are coming, accessing that page, it's loading, but then they're moving on before the request can be sent. Or it's an issue of the timing that you have within the configuration. So the tag might be executing prior to the data being available either on the page or in the data layer for it to be able to grab and send back. So timing is a big one. Start looking at timing priority. Where exactly in that page load is your tag firing? And is the data available? One, and is it happening before or after I would expect a user to move to the next page. That's going to give me a really good idea as I come into testing, what is the issue, what do I need to fix? And that process is awesome for those one-off sort of testing scenarios. But how do I test and how do I validate an entire implementation on an ongoing basis at a massive, massive scale? That's where we get into monitoring and alerting. The keys to monitoring and alerting are still these two aspects, but just at a larger scale. So one, it's absolutely imperative that we have defined what our expected and what our requirements are. So what is the expected behavior of these tags and of the data layer? I then need to be working with some sort of a tool or automating a process for going through and checking X, Y, Z off of a list on a regular basis. Luckily, with Tag Inspector, we have a means of automating this validation. You could also, like I mentioned, do it manually with an ongoing process. But what monitoring allows you to do is simply be alerted when anything breaks, which is really the ultimate when it comes to validation. Unfortunately, we haven't figured out how to automatically fix everything for you yet, but we'll keep you up to date as that goal becomes nearer. For the time being, just going ahead and putting in a process for ongoing monitoring, ongoing alerting, so you can be proactive when it comes to data collection issues, and your business teams can always have the reports and everything that they need in order to really maximize the value of these different sorts of analytics platforms.